you've said now a couple times, a decade, 2 decades, like you're going out. Um, can you talk about how far out do you go with that vision when you're doing that? And I want to kind of continue on that, which is also how do you also execute today? Because because that's like that's kind of hard. It's like, hey, that's where we're going to be in 10 years, but we have to do this today, tomorrow, next week. Like, how do you tie those things together?
Yeah. Well, it's been an area that I've played in and built businesses around fundamental offerings, infrastructure, primarily in digital infrastructure, cloud computing, data centers, fundamental networking and software. Um, these are long cycles. Nobody kind of adopts things in a heartbeat. It's not a consumer business, which might be, very quick to adopt. There's different businesses. I've mainly focused on kind of B2B or B
Mm.
to what do you call it? B to
It's even
D,
bigger, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like, fundamental enterprise, businesses where trust and long-term cycles happen. Okay, fine. And I would argue the world is moving quick, but, it's still kind of, I would say, almost impossible to time something within a year or two. Like, go build a product, a brand, get it to customers, and have that happen within a micro trend of a couple years, right? It feels like, what is it, February 2025? Like, it just feels like 6 months ago that ChatGPT came out. I don't know, it was almost 2 years or whatever. Like, man, time goes by fast. And so I find that if you're going to go build a business and you want to build something meaningful, which is, by the way, the only thing I want to work on every day,
Mhm.
um, is to stretch myself. And so I challenge around a 10 year. 10 years for me, the easy one, right? It feels good and why does it feel good? It's far enough in the future that you don't have to actually think how you would accomplish it. Like, you can dream, which is that thing like, oh, well, I mean, flying cars, like, I don't know, 2035 could happen, right? Like, like, I don't know how, but like, I could see it. And so, like, it allows you to kind of, what do you say, suspend disbelief for a minute and do a little, imagination, which is a great muscle. And I think that's where the most interesting ideas come from, with somebody, an entrepreneur, thinking like, well, maybe it could be totally different. And so allowing yourself that space to dream without conditions of practicality, I think, is important. And 10 years for me does that without being so far-fetched that you
Mm.
couldn't envision it in your own lifetime. And for me, I'm 45 years old. Like, I want to kind of still see myself in the future of this thing a little bit. Um, and so the 10-year outbound it feels really comfortable. And then you can kind of, if you feel like you've got a good viewpoint, for example, when I started Packet in 2014, I do the reverse. I look back 10 years, so that helps me just gain perspective of like, well, was it really that impossible? In 2014, we started Packet. 2004, 5, the iPhone was not even out. So like, I'm like, wow, like, my life is really different from pre-iPhone, pre-streaming video,
It's
pre like
amazing.
2G, 3G, like, everything is different for me in 2014, where software is moving, rapidly, and cloud computing exists, and, people are highly connected. I was like, wow, I guess 2025, I didn't envision, generative AI, but I was like, why wouldn't we be talking at walls and stuff like that? It was a definite concept that I thought about. And so I think look forward helps, just to give that kind of perspective. And then, once you do that, like, you kind of ground yourself around this kind of future thing, well, then you can start to, like, you know, approach the innovation. All right, well, how would we get there? Okay, well, what could
Mm.
we do about that now to prove that thesis, or to learn more, or to build a foundational product that actually fits? And then you just use that 10-year vision as a litmus test on your decisions. So that way, as you're planning out your quarter, you say, well, is that going to get me to the 10-year thing? Like, am I going to make progress towards it? I'm not going to get there, but am I going to make progress? And part of that might get the right funding, find a first customer, build the first rev of your product. Like,
Mhm.
that's all towards some big giant thing that's going to take a long time. And in like Packet's case, we wanted to connect hardware, no matter what it was, with a developer writing software, no matter what he or she was doing with it. And that goal was like, we envisioned specialized computers. We said, it's not just going to be Intel x86 boxes of 2014. It's going to be little ARM boxes. It's going to be GPUs. It's going to be specialized computers that software is going to move everywhere. How can we connect those two things? And that was the mission. And then we worked every day to be like, well, would that make that possible? And that allowed us to break it down actually pretty easily. And we had it was actually easier to disqualify things out. We had a couple of choices very early on, as early companies do, which is like, well, we would just kind of take a shortcut here. And, we'd make it work for the computers that are here today, like x86 boxes. And I said, no, that won't help us for software, no matter what hardware. I said, so we need to go back and make it multi-arch. So we needed to support ARM64. Like, let's practice with an arch from the beginning. So we have both x86 and ARCH64. And that was a lot more work. But we said, just doing it on one, it was not going to practice the muscle necessary for us to go to anything. So we needed to build a foundational offering that could think in multiple architectures from the beginning. So that was like an example of what we had to like stop, not do something that was actually a shortcut and work towards the larger mission, even in a very